I think the claims that millionaires are going to leave our state are like super overblown. And if, the ones that leave, like, bye.
So today I'm also announcing my support for a millionaire's tax on the wealthiest in Washington state. So let me be crystal clear one more time.
Washington lawmakers are closer to adopting an income tax on the state's wealthiest people. The so-called millionaire's tax passed the state Senate on a party line vote late Monday, with 3 Democrats joining the Republican opposition.
Yeah, Preston, this is a long-planned annual event that is coincidentally happening at the time when the state appears poised to make a major change to the tax code. And former Starbucks CEO Howard Schultz says he will move out of the state. And there are some whispers in corners of this room that is just the first shoe to drop.
That would make us more likely to move to Oregon before we were to sell it, because their tax is a third less than what this tax is in Washington.
Governor, if the changes aren't made, would you veto the millionaires?
Oh, I'm not going to get into a hypothetical. I think I've been pretty clear. I think where I've used the word must,
Critics have definitely suggested that this tax would prompt high earners and corporations to leave.
I've not seen evidence of that.
Seattle AI founder looks to leave as taxes rise. Everybody that I know is in the process of leaving. Yet another AI company, an AI company that should be here in Seattle because we've got such a strong tech economy. But for how long? That's the question. Let's get into it. Here we go. Venice AI is looking at Texas, Nevada, Florida, and Tennessee as alternatives to Seattle's tax climate. It's not just Seattle's tax climate. It's Seattle's climate in general. It used to be so welcoming of businesses. We had Amazon, we had Starbucks, we had Microsoft. And now we've literally got everybody leaving. And it's not shocking. Recent events alone, you had Katie Wilson, the mayor of Seattle, protesting against Starbucks. Starbucks moves, 2,000 jobs, $100 million to Nashville, Tennessee. Closes a bunch of Seattle stores. Big shocker there, right? Howard Schultz, CEO of Starbucks, moves his personal residence. Jeff Bezos moves his personal residence to Florida. Founder of Amazon. Just recently, you had Mayor Katie Wilson talking about how she thinks the flight of millionaires, the exodus flight of millionaires, is overblown. And she basically said, bye, and then giggled. And the people that were watching her press conference, watching her talk, they're going to be the ones that will end up having to pay all the taxes because all the millionaires are leaving. All the tech founders are leaving. Nobody's going to stay with the environment going on the way that it is. You got the millionaire state tax. That's going to be a tax for everybody in not very long. That initial deal we're dealing with right now is just the wedge that kind of gets in there to open up the constitutionality of a statewide millionaire tax so they can tax everybody. You've had a proposed statewide payroll tax. Seattle's got a, tax Amazon tax. All of these things pushing out business like there is no tomorrow. Seattle AI startup founder says he's preparing to leave the city as taxes rise, warning that many entrepreneurs are already heading for the exits. Yeah, it's happening in real time. Physically, it's a beautiful, beautiful city. It really is. It's got some crappy weather. But more importantly, it's so blue that it hurts. And as a result, the policy, somebody was asking me if I thought, how long is it going to take for Seattle constituents to change their vote to get somebody better, somebody more reasonable into office. And I don't think they will, because then Seattle voters are so far left that would mean that they would have to admit that all of their policies, all their ideologies, all of their beliefs are essentially wrong because they ended up in just tanking Seattle. And I don't see that happening. I think they double down and just keep voting these people into office, like a socialist that's never really held a job, that can't pay her own bills in the very city she is mayor of. We're out looking for an alternative. Jesse Proudman, president and CTO of Venice AI, privacy-focused, unrestricted generative AI platform, told Fox News Digital in an interview Friday. So we're looking in Nevada. Yeah, a lot of businesses have gone there. Low tax. It's cheap. It's affordable. We're looking in Texas. Yeah, pro-business, right? And Austin. Now, Austin's blue, but it's more purple-ish, right? And that's where the business has gone. A lot of business has gone to Dallas as well. You got a major financial center there. We're looking at Nashville. I mean, they basically just opened up to Starbucks and said, come on in. We'll do whatever we need to get you in here. We'd love to have you have your second headquarters, whatever it is. However they're trying to, Starbucks is trying to say, no, we're not leaving Seattle. We're just creating a second headquarters elsewhere. And you're like, yeah, you're leaving Seattle. You're leaving Seattle. Everything except for what comes out of leadership's mouths indicates they're leaving Seattle. Looking at Nashville and Florida. I mean, how many billionaires have moved to Florida? Yeah, a lot. And these are climates where the business community is vibrant. This is a no-brainer. They're climates where the government is encouraging entrepreneurship and they're welcoming people and they're not villainizing those who have built something. So here he kind of goes into his history. He's been in Washington State for 28 years, started his first company at 13, 41, lifelong resident, running companies for 28 years. Here it is. Seattle used to be a place where you were excited to build something, where it was celebrated, where you could imagine creating something from nothing and you could manifest that, Proudman said. And for many years, probably 20 years, that was the culture here. Probably longer than that. I mean, I remember it heavily when I was in high school and in college, and that was in the mid and late 80s. So it's been way longer than 20 years, but I think last 25 years, with the last 5 years being just terrible. The 20 years prior to that, I mean, that was the culture, right? For many years, for probably 20 years, there was a culture here. We had a vibrant startup community. We had a very supportive startup community, and the ecosystem worked. It helped build the companies. And then, for whatever reason, that's interesting right there. I'm not really sure, but, well, sort of over the last 4 or 5 years, we've seen this shift where entrepreneurship is now villainized. It's because you've got Democrats have a supermajority in Washington State, and Democrats have embraced socialism. Hence, Katie Wilson, mayor of Seattle, standing up and saying from Starbucks shortly after she got in office. That is nuts. You're basically pushing out a major employer in your city. You don't do that. But if you're a socialist, and if you are a Democrat that is embracing socialism, you're okay with it. And folks here are okay with that. Leadership here is okay with that. And what that inherently does is it pushes out business, because socialism doesn't exactly embrace capitalism, right? Which is what AI startups are all about. It's what startups in general are all about. And it's an unfortunate and sad shift in what otherwise has been a phenomenal place to run businesses. Seattle, out of control right now, just out of control. Washington State, out of control. Just massive spending, and they don't have the revenue to cover their spending addiction. And so they're going to have to go after everybody who's left that hasn't left during this whole deal. In a sad shift in what otherwise has been a phenomenal place to run businesses. It has been. It is no longer. The tax basis here and the tax basis that is coming are just literally just pushing people out. Just pushing people out left and right. Because why would you stay here if you had another option? You wouldn't. So I think a lot of people, including myself, who didn't think we'd ever leave, are in the process of leaving. Because this no longer makes sense. Like, the numbers don't pencil. The numbers don't crunch. And especially when you're looking at what we are moving down the road, they're going to have to tax the absolute you-know-what out of everything. I mean, what could go wrong, right? What could go wrong? It's going to have everybody leave. And when Katie Wilson was confronted, or when she was stating recently that she thinks millionaires leaving the state are overblown and literally said, bye, that's the mindset. We don't really care if millionaires leave. I don't think they care. This is socialism. This is what they believe in. And they will die on that cross trying, right? Oh yeah, this is the one time socialism's going to work. It's going to work. In March, Washington State Democrats passed a millionaire tax. Bob Ferguson, state's ever first income tax. That's going to be tied up in litigation forever, right? But they're going to have to push it through because they need that. They need that tax revenue. Here's the other thing. Moody's just downgraded Washington State. Just downgraded Washington State from I think a neutral outlook to negative. Yeah, we're no longer. The Wall Street Journal editorial board called the new tax a con after its passage that will inevitably capture the middle class. That's what's happening. This is the initial salvo. Then you got this kind of stuff going on. You got Andrea Suarez down there just in an absolute dumpster, which is known as underneath the freeway system, because the State Department of Roadway has the Department of Transportation has the right to clean that up, and they don't. And so it just becomes absolutely terrible. So you've got these situations where businesses are being pushed out, and then you've got this kind of stuff going on because it's not prioritized. We're okay with people doing drugs. We're okay with homeless encampments. We're okay with trash. We're okay with the city looking terrible. They're going to try and clean it up a little bit for the World Cup, just like they did when the baseball all-star and some concerts came to town. Oh, let's get it cleaned up. We got those relatives coming into town. Let's get it cleaned up. They're beginning with millionaires because that's an easier place to sell it. It's obvious that they intend to apply this to everybody. This was the Wall Street Journal. Proudman said his concern is that Washington State, the senator, Jamie Peterson, who sponsored the millionaires tax, intends to extend the tax beyond millionaires. 100%. I mean, it's happening. It's happening. It doesn't make sense to continue to live here if you have mobility. And yeah. And even if you don't have mobility, I think it makes sense to basically figure out a way to get out. I mean, one way or the other. Because this is a market that is not going in the right direction. So KVI basically, they reported on the same thing. Entrepreneur warns income tax is driving tech talent out of Washington. I mean, it's happening in real time. This was an interesting piece from our guy, Jesse Proudman of the AI company. And he talks about his growing up in Tacoma and, what a great place it was. And he running businesses here and then kind of hitting this wall. And it's the same wall that all of us are hitting from a business standpoint. The state's spending problem is undeniable and untenable. Budget has more than tripled in the last decade because you've got all these absolutely ridiculous projects and spending that are unsustainable long term. So now in the 11th hour of this legislative session, Senate Bill 6346 is introduced, an income tax that attempts to bypass 90 years of constitutional precedent. 100%. 100%. It's this motion moving forward. And because the socialists are, and that's basically all the Democrats have embraced socialism just by and by. I mean, even if they're not outwardly saying that, anybody who's progressive is basically, talking the socialist talk, which is we need progressive revenue. Taxing wealthy people, taxing businesses. And when you do that, you drive both of them out. And it doesn't look like, especially here in Seattle, they don't care because there was, the one word reaction from Katie Wilson, Seattle's mayor, to millionaire business owners leaving. And it was bye. Literally. Literally. That is nuts. That is nuts. But what it means is this is where we are. Hey, come to Seattle. But don't let the door kick in the ass if you decide to leave and you're a millionaire, or you're just able to leave. That kind of thing, right? You just left with, what? What are we doing? This is Seattle. This is supposed to be, entrepreneur pro, but it's not. It's not at all. It's just absolutely nuts. Microsoft CEO recently acknowledged that AI now generates 30% of the company's code. We're not seeing layoffs. We're witnessing a fundamental restructuring of the industry that has been a core pillar for Washington. So what you've got going on is you've got this anti-business, socialist embracing mantra, progressive ideology. We need the wealthy to pay their fair share of taxes as businesses are leaving. And here in the Puget Sound area, specifically Seattle, you've got so many tech companies that are going to be retooling things with AI. And we've already seen, we've seen the Amazon layoffs. We've seen the Microsoft, hey, we're going to go ahead and offer you a buyout of your contract. You're already seeing that. You're seeing Facebook, Meta. You're seeing all of these layoffs. Now, some of that is because things got so bloated during the pandemic because there was such a massive push to everything online because everybody was staying inside all day trying to, avoid getting the Rona. Wild time, wasn't it? But you've got this time period right now where all these tech companies are investing. Amazon's investing $200 billion into AI technology, and that technology will replace employees. So Washington State is saying goodbye to millionaire employees. Katie Wilson, mayor of Seattle, is saying bye. Payroll tax doesn't exactly, increase the odds that a company's going to start up here. They're all being pushed out. I think it's all on purpose. I think, destroy the entire West Coast is right up there. I think it's right there. I think it's happening right in front of us. And then meanwhile, while all that stuff's going on to push out, you've literally got an internal change happening with the tech industry. AI is going to replace so many of those jobs. People think, well, it's going to be a long-term run to do that, Sean. I don't think so. So there's going to be a huge, huge double whammy to Seattle. And at one point in time, all of those tech companies just moved the 10 miles across the water from Seattle to Bellevue, where I'm sitting. Downtown is just a couple of miles to the west here. But that is no longer an option. That's not an option because you've got a statewide millionaire tax. So they're coming after everybody now. So, the cards are on the table, and anybody who can leave is leaving. And where I struggle with that is that yesterday we had a beautiful day. I was out of my boat. It was amazing. There was 1 million people in Lake Union. It was great. Went out and floated in Lake Washington for a while. Got some sun. It was like 80 something degrees, or I don't know. It was hot. It was warm for Seattle, and it's so beautiful. Mount Rainier was just right there. We were floating just south of 520. Just fantastic setting. Fantastic setting. But it seems like all of the great cities with great physical geography and attributes are run by Democrats because they're in big cities. And it's terrible. You're just literally pushing people away. So I will gladly take myself to Oklahoma, which arguably, you can't even argue it, does not have the same physical geography. It's landlocked, right? It's not on the water. It's not on the coast. It's not near the ocean. Doesn't have mountains, pretty flat. But that is far more, for me, where I am, that is far, having a reasonable leadership system, having a reasonable taxation system, somewhere where that I can go and know what I'm going to get instead of staying here in Seattle and just recognizing, well, if I'm in Washington State, I'm just going to get taxed to the absolute oblivion, and it's going to be okay. That's not where I want to be. Can I stick it out for a while? Well, I thought I could, but I'm choosing to make a move. And that's away from here. And my parents are in Oklahoma. So, the move makes sense. Move makes sense for me from a family standpoint, but it also makes sense from I got to get out of Washington. Washington is hosed. And when you look at the extent to which Washington is hosing itself, I don't think it's that much of a stretch that, this is going to get a lot worse before it gets better. And if you can go somewhere else, you can buy a house for way cheaper groceries, cheaper gasoline, cheaper whatever it is. Everything is basically cheaper in Oklahoma. But then the kicker is, all right, you've got to be able to embrace that culture. Can you do that? Can you survive there? It is damn hot there. And then in winter, it's cold, and you got those winds that just right across the plains. Can you survive that? Well, we're about to find out, right? We're about to find out. So stay tuned. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Hit the notification bell, and I'll see you in the next episode. Thanks so much for joining. We'll catch up soon. Bye for now.